Jason. Come on, Jason, you can do it. If you try.
Goodbye.
Can Jason pull off the Ange, though? And now.
And now, welcome to Talking Shh with Glenn and Tony. Take it away, fellas.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ange.
you, Jason. Well, that's Jay Sange.
Jason.
He's Jay Sange this week.
Most excellent. Always good helping out. What were you just playing there, Tony? That was very nice. I like the feel of that.
Oh, that's one I've been playing around with for a couple of decades, but haven't quite smoothed it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's hold on, I'm just gonna repost this so get on the feed. It's just an A minor with just a little third second shift between it.
Very nice.
Trying to get that you know, the third that slides back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Resolution. Something like that.
Yeah, I like it. Very nice.
And I've also thought about doing it like you know, with some hits and
a little bit livelier, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not so gloomy.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to write gloomy.
Gloomy's allowed, especially when you're playing in minor.
Yeah, and that's what minor always makes me go to. You know, the slower or gloomier sound.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. And here I thought I had my cable plugged in, and I did not. Bummer. I got it right there. So the going back and forth between two things like there, we have a few different videos for going on for tonight. We have a couple that are keyboard, a couple that are guitar, a couple that are just plain music. So we could start with anything that you like there. I was even thinking about starting with a song just to get people all back in. Maybe one of the Tennessee songs, Tennessee Line. How about that?
Oh, nice.
Maybe play that for us while we get everybody.
Bring it on. I love Tennessee.
Get everybody back in, sat down, and ready to go, and then we'll jump into the others. So let's do it that way. I do believe that also give me a chance to get my cable set up for the bass. I was too busy tuning a minute ago, but now we'll do it this way instead.
Man, if I didn't know better, I swear you shoved the Ange into like every one of those pictures somewheres. It's like, where's
they're
Waldo?
Yep.
I see her in everything.
Exactly. Sometimes there's even two on screen at the same time, but it doesn't happen often, though.
Ah, there she is.
Sneaking in. Now we should have Tennessee Line sitting right there. Yeah. So this was one that we released in September. And it's a fun one. I figured it was a nice little fun song to start us out, and that'll give me a chance to get everybody settled over here and get back in once we got the stream restarted. We appreciate everybody coming out. Always good to see Tony. Always good to have Jason here. And we'll get started with everything else in just a minute. In the meantime, we have Tennessee Line.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I left out of Baton Rouge and I got on 61. Trying to make it up to Memphis for one more run. If I can get there before daylight, things will be just fine. Dodging the law at the Tennessee line. Got a couple of pounds of weed and a big old bag of speed. Some of that shit that kills and a thermos full of pills. If I get caught with all this shit, I'll be doing the max time. So Lord, don't let them get me at the Tennessee line. I was running up the road with all this on my mind, with one eye in the mirror and the other on the white line. I blew a tire outside of Vicksburg, just past the dump. Pulled over and I fixed it, and I did myself a bone.
Well, when you're living this life, so many things can go wrong. You have to be lucky every day. And the cops, well, they only have to be lucky once. But the worst is the betrayal of a friend. See, when people get popped, they'll do just about anything to stay out of jail. Man, you better believe it. They'll even turn you in.
I've got a pistol in my boot and I got a bag of cash. Got a pint of whiskey in my lap and I got my stash. I'm just rolling up this highway with one thing on my mind. Dodging the law at the Tennessee line. Oh, it's gonna be trouble. Oh, it's gonna be trouble. Well, I come over the hill and I see nothing but blue lights. Lord, it doesn't look like I'll make it through this night, 'cause I'm not gonna let them put me in that jail. I'll crash right through this roadblock and I'll send us all to hell. Oh, she stayed home at night. Oh, he knew something wasn't right. Oh, he should have stayed home that night.
You should have stayed home.
Oh, he should have stayed away from the Tennessee line. Well, this turned out to be his very last run. ran into some trouble at the other end of 61. He made it there by daylight, but things didn't work out fine. 'Cause he lost his life that night at the Tennessee line.
Tennessee Line. Like I said, we put that one out in September, and that was Antonia and Gary and Brian and me and Kevin.
That was nice with the little mandolin hits at the end. That was a toe tapper.
Yeah,
I was just like bouncing.
It's a fun one. Let me see here. Let me stop that share for a second there. We can see what we're doing over here. All right. Now, that was definitely some cool stuff. I like the new additions there. We got your cameras going. We got your C music happening. We got the visualizer. You can see what's happening when you play. Nice. Very cool. Now,
I wish I could get rid of those damn hands. They're not mine.
They're not yours. We'll figure it out. Can anyone identify these hands so we can get Tony's in there instead? We can make it happen. Not a problem. Now, the first question is, I want to say, start with Jake. Go with Signals. Yeah, Signals Music Studio. I was trying to remember the full name there. Signals Music Studio there. And
What's Jake been up to?
yep, this one is actually from a few years ago, but it's important stuff for a little bit of theory, nothing too heavy, I don't think. This is more about doing a little bit of soloing and soloing over minor blues. Minor blues in it. Something that everybody can relate to, right? Little minor blues and A stuff.
Blues lends itself to minor really well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's kind of the proper use of it, because that's the thing is some people, when they hear just playing let's just play a blues in A or whatever, they think, oh, that's so basic, it's just going to be blah, play a chord, blah, play a chord, blah, do this. But it's more what can you do with a very simple form, and that's where things like just a straight 12-bar blues, you can really have a world of possibility within there. It's just a question of what you choose to do with it, really.
Yeah. With blues, it's not so much what key that you're in; it's how you approach the key.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And bounce.
Exactly. Now let's see what we have here. I believe the volume should be good. I think I have it about halfway, so let me know if it needs to go up or down there, but it should be fine.
All right, today we're jamming over a minor blues track. Everything you need to know about this track is in the video description. There's a chart that shows the chords we're using, the shapes we're using, the structure of the jam, and more importantly, the scale shapes that we're going to use to solo over on the top of this. It's a very simple jam, and it's very easy to sound great on top of a track like this. So I'm going to show you the first simple thing you can do. You might be able to guess it's in pentatonic minor, but don't worry, we'll go past pentatonics in this video. So as I've explained before, what we're going to do is find A on the 6th string on the 5th fret, and then we can just play the shape, pentatonic minor. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm only going to focus on these 4 notes right here on the 3rd string and on the 4th string. Those 4 little notes here, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. And I'm literally only going to play those notes for my first guitar solo. This is an interesting exercise, and you'll see why for a few different reasons. You have to be a little more creative when you can use less notes, because you can't go crazy. You can't just go up and down. You have to start thinking about when to play the note as opposed to just what note to play. You get to start thinking about, should I slide up to the note? Should I slide down? Should I do a pull off to that note? Should the note be staccato, legato? These are kind of questions that are hard to ask yourself when you're thinking about shapes and you're flying all over your fretboard. But since we're only working with four little notes, we can really spend the time to think about what we're doing, and it'll make a big difference in the sound of our playing. So I'm going to play 4 notes, and the only other thing I'm going to do here for this solo is a pre-bend on the 3rd string. So what I'm doing on the 3rd string, on this note, I'm going to bend the note before I even pick it, like this. Then I'm going to pick the string and let the bend fall. This is a very effective little tool here, and it's hard to describe the emotional content of this, but you'll feel it. It's very kind of depressing, kind of smooth, and just a little heartbreaking. But take a listen to how it sounds when we put it in context here. So, once again, all I'm doing is playing 4 notes and 1 pre-bend, and check out how good this is going to sound. Nice. Right? So that pre-bend is wonderful. And God, I mean, I'll use that all day over a jam like this. One thing I would advise you to do is really spend the entire jam just playing those 4 notes. It's a very, very good practice, and I swear to you that you're going to be forced to work in a part of your brain that you might not be working when you're thinking lead guitar. And that's the difference between, you know, making your lead guitar sound good. It doesn't matter how many shapes you know. It doesn't know how many scales you know. What matters is how do you play those things. So when you get rid of all the clutter and when you stop thinking about all the shapes and you can just focus on 4 little notes, then you can start really focusing on how they sound, how they feel, and what it comes across when somebody's listening to it. Okay, our next step would be to add in a little bit of the Dorian scale. The Dorian scale is a tricky scale to use. The shape's going to be very convenient here. What we're going to do is just 8th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 8th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret. And then if you want to continue, you can slide down a half step. Essentially, A Dorian is the same thing as G major, so if you want to think of this as being in the G major scale, you can think of the shape as just using the G major shape. But really, if you look at how it connects to pentatonic, it's very simple here. That's Dorian, and here's pentatonic. So all the notes of pentatonic minor are also in Dorian, but Dorian has extra colors, extra notes we can grab, and that'll be a problem over a lot of the chords. Actually, it'll be a problem over every single chord except A minor 7. But since most of this jam uses the A minor 7 chord, that means I can use Dorian over most of the jam. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play pentatonic minor over pretty much the entire thing, but over the A minor 7 chords, I'm going to grab a lot of these notes from the Dorian scale, or the G major scale, whatever you want to think of it as, and then you'll see me switching back and forth between those 2 shapes. Back to Dorian. A little bit of pentatonic. I'm going to stay in pentatonic for the D minor 7 chord. More Dorian. Back to pentatonic. And you can, I mean, you can totally feel the difference between the Dorian scale and the pentatonic scale. They kind of contrast each other. Every time I feel that note from Dorian, it's in this case it's an F sharp, and it's the natural 6th note in the A minor scale. Adds a lot more brightness to what's normally a pretty dark scale. Okay, so the last thing here, I completely ignored the fact that you can use the A minor scale over almost this entire jam. There's going to be one problem, though, is when the E7 chord comes up. You can't play the A minor scale over E7. You'll have to play A harmonic minor instead. And the reason for that is just because E major, or E7, has this note G sharp in it, and there's no G sharp in the key of A minor. So when we were doing, if you play the entire A minor scale, you will not run into a G sharp. So what we have to do is we have to sneak in a G sharp for that E7 chord. Anytime that E7 chord comes up, we're going to just grab a little bit of G sharp there. We can do it here, underneath our A on the 1st string. We could do it here, underneath A on our 4th string. We could do an A right underneath A on our 6th string, but you're probably not going to be soloing down here. So what you're going to hear me do is you're going to be hearing me play A minor. I'm going to play the A minor scale all the way through this entire jam, except when that E7 chord comes up. When E7 comes up, I'll grab just a little bit of G sharp, and that'll essentially be me playing an A harmonic minor. I don't have to play up and down the entire harmonic minor shape just to say I'm playing in harmonic minor. I just need a little bit of that scale. So let's check out that, all right? A minor, start to finish, and then whenever E7 comes up, I'll be playing a little A harmonic minor instead. Okay, so a G sharp is going to come up here, right here. And now I'm back to the A minor scale, all right? Still staying in A minor, lots of pentatonic. And now I'm going to bring in a little bit of that G sharp for the E7 chord right here. All right, one more time and you'll hear that E7. Lots of pentatonic minor, some minor scale. Okay, and then here's going to come that E7 chord. I'll play the G sharp. And then back to A minor. All right, and you hear the effect of that? A lot more exotic. There's a lot of flair. There's a lot of spice. Anytime you enter that dominant 5 chord, or you play a little harmonic minor, you're going to get that kind of that zest going on. So it's nice to spice things up. I wouldn't really recommend it every single time, but certainly to change the sound up from just, you know, regular pentatonic minor, I think it makes a big difference. So hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it helps.
I can totally see what he was talking about with the G sharp, and it leads back into the A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And his explanation of the modal change kind of being G major, except you're starting on the A.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That made total sense to me. Actually,
that's
helped me
how you think
understand
about
what he was doing.
that's how you think about A Dorian, is basically G major, just focusing on landing on the A's, or highlighting the A's essentially.
Still got to get the blues flavor down. I don't have the blues bounce yet.
And that's where some of those, one of the other videos that we have is for a keyboard thing, and that's going into those 3-finger grips again. Just different ways of looking at navigating the keyboard. So that's one that we can look at as well. Let me see if that was what I had up next, or was it...
Yeah, I got a permanent grip on my C music.
You do. Actually got the cross hands grips, right? Like the super expert ninja style cross hands grip.
Yeah, I'm a virtual Mozart.
There you go. Hey, what's up, Sever? We've got people in the chat over there hanging out, coming back in.
Hey, Sever.
Breaking the stream up into a couple parts here, but getting everybody settled back in. And I believe this one is Tony's favorite hand actor.
Oh, yeah, this guy does have palm olive hands.
He does a great job with the instructional videos for the keyboard. Oliver Prain, I believe, is his name. And let's see if that's where we are here. For the channel is New Jazz.
If the C music could give me hands like that, I'd love it more than my own.
Easy now. This one is about blending major and minor blues scale. And it's on the keyboard. So how about that?
Blending major and minor. See, now that's something a lot of people don't talk about.
Exactly. And this guy, he has that great approach. And also we had talked about the expanding of the modes at one point. The one where just by doing things, I guess algorithmically, or just making a certain change, you could just make it, continue to make it darker or continue to make it brighter. And he was able to that way shift the modes and work his way one way or the other. It was one of the cool videos we did. I think it was about a month and a half ago. But let's see what he has here. This is again about blending major and minor blues scale.
I'm wondering if he's just going to do relative, major and minor, or if he's going to go into modal shifts.
I'm guessing it's going to be in the that it's going to be more about the borrowed chords, like we had said, like playing in C major but borrowing a chord from C minor, for example. That's my guess, but it could be just going back and forth to get that interplay between the happy and the sad.
Yeah.
And or it could be some combination there of both. I was too mesmerized by the hands moving to to remember from when I watched it earlier. But let's see how he does.
Well, they are mesmerizing.
Hi. This lesson is about how we can improvise thrilling jazzy blues by using only our first 3 fingers. We learn to zap between minor and major simultaneously. And finally, we'll learn how we can really jazz up our solo. Now, let me demonstrate the sound we can do when mastering this lesson. Look, I only use these 3 fingers. This lesson is about the 3-finger motor system, a very simple, practical system for jazz improvisation based on hand grips that we can use for so many different applications. This lesson presents just one of them, the minor-major blues approach. Other lessons will benefit from the system in completely different jazz contexts. I'll gather all the lessons in a playlist and paste a link below. The lessons can be learned in any order you like, so you can just pick out a topic you'll like the most. So far we have only 2 lessons in the playlist though, but about every month a new lesson will be added. The 3-finger motor system is simple. It consists of only 2 basic simple hand grips. This 3rd/4th grip and this chromatic hand grip. Now, before I show you the more spicy jazzy
that
tricks,
chromatic one
let's
is
for a start
nasty, huh?
just do the C minor blues scale by placing the 3rd/4th hand grip here and here, and the chromatic hand grip.
It's the magic
here.
in the middle.
So now we can make nice phrases and melodies on the C minor blues scale. So we could just stop here, actually. Music doesn't have to be complicated. Music is more about energy and feelings than about the ability to play several different scales, you know. But if we want to expand our tone material anyway, we can also place our 3rd/4th hand grip here and here, and the chromatic hand grip here. And we got the C major blues scale.
Oh, I get it.
So minor blues and major blues. Now the trick is to zap between minor and major. Improvising over a blues is often about mixing both minor and major. So, if I'm supposed to play the blues, for example, in minor, I often mix in some major sound as well,
the same goes for the other way around. We can of course gather all the notes in use and play this 9-note chromatic scale up and down. But that's a little boring and not so bluesy, I think. It's much better to split up our sound into 2 separate scales by using hand grips and then sap between the 2 minor major flavors. Now, let's add a 4-meter bass, for example, like this. So the bass indicates that we play the blues in major, right? But we really don't care, because in the right hand we mix in the minor blues scale as well. Let's try this out. Now, this is a modal blues, staying at the same bass C tonality. Later on, I'll add other lessons to our 3-finger motor system playlist, and we'll learn to play over chord progressions as well. But for now, let's just stay modal, hanging out, dwelling on the C blues minor major flavor. Now we are ready to make our solo a lot more jazzy and gripping, so to speak. So please stay tuned.
Ever wish that music came easily to you? That you could speak it naturally, as easy?
Yes, I
In
do.
a previous lesson
Thank
about
you.
the 3-finger motor system, we learned how to play inside and outside a given tonality. So now the trick is to go wild and sap in and out of our main minor major blues tonality. So for a start, let's occasionally sap out to, for example, the E flat minor blues scale. Look, same hand grips, same piano fingering. Let's try this out. So by sapping in and out, we really add some nice jazzy color to our minor major blues, right? Let's add the left hand bass. When we feel ready, let's sap out to other hand grip positions as well. Again, because we use the same hand grips, the same piano fingering, no matter the tonality, it all becomes much easier and straightforward, right? When using simple improvisation techniques, we can to a much higher degree focus our energy on playing music. Later on, I'll do some lessons with specific licks and phrases in slow motion and with sheet music and everything, and I'll add them to the playlist below. Then you can really study the technique in use and what's going on in detail. But I can only make about one new lesson every month, and there's also so much other great stuff I need to show you about the three-finger motor system, so I surely hope you have patience with me. It'll all be revealed gradually. You are, of course, so much welcome to make a voluntary donation, but you certainly don't have to. All new jazz lessons are public, free, for everybody, money or no money. And thank you so much for all your likes and nice comments below my videos. I'm really just so grateful for all your lovely, encouraging support. Many warm regards from Oliver Prehn.
Definitely makes that look easy.
He does make it look easy, but it's not.
I do love the fact that it's a simple concept. It's just a little bit complicated to pull off, but a little bit of practice. You too can play like this.
And I do understand his concept, especially on the left hand. It's so simple on the left hand.
One of my favorite parts about the demonstration that he does is when he was working with the C major, for example, at the beginning, and then goes to the E flat minor pentatonic, because that's the only bad notes, the only wrong notes, like all five of the only wrong notes. That's that scale. So like the E flat minor pentatonic is all the black notes when you're playing in C major. So it's like, you're able to utilize everything, and that's why he's able to just freely do what he wants, because he's using notes in the scale and then notes out of the scale, but in essence, he's using all of the notes. So it's just a question of when to use the certain combinations, where it's not just a bad clunker note here or there, but you're going to use all the bad notes all at once as a little run, and then come back home to the key you were going for.
And I noticed those little 3 chromatic notes, and the whole key to how he was doing everything was using those as like quick bridges in between the chord scales, and that's the thing that's going to take a lot of practice for me, because I can get the but the in between, that's the part he makes it look easy.
Exactly. He makes it look easier than it is, but at the same time, we don't have to do it at that speed right off the bat. Like we can, ease our way into it kind of and just
Well,
work
he shows
with,
the benefit of practice. Like,
right, exactly.
if you were to practice that, you could play that fast and smooth.
Absolutely.
It's almost like I got a piano lesson from Antiphone. I like his voice and I like his hands.
Yeah, absolutely. He does a great job, and I love the way he breaks things down too. Like just like you said, just in understanding that all he did there, it's like somebody saying, they go off on this, guitar solo for 5 minutes, like the most amazing guitar solo you've heard. And at the end, he was like, "Oh yeah, it was all just pentatonic stuff, So it's like it's easy to describe what it is, but that doesn't make it easy to do,
or to understand.
Like easy to have it come out that way. Yeah.
For me as a keyboardist, when you guitarists are like, "Oh, it's just a pentatonic," means nothing to me as a keyboardist with my understanding of things. Watching and like with his bass there. That's the first thing that clicked for me was, wow, that's a pretty straightforward jazz blues.
Yep. And the big important thing about that particular line right there is you're going from the root to what? The root to the 3 to the 4 to the 5?
The 5th. Wait, we're in C, right?
So you're going from root 3, 4, 5?
3rd, 4th, 5th.
And that's important too, because that's how you're reinforcing the chord tones, because root 3 and 5 are the chord tones for you.
And that's a nice, simple thing to be doing with my left hand if I'm going to try to...
to bounce all over with the right. Yeah.
See, my left hand starts thinking on its own.
Yep. And that's what happens to me. And that's where this exercise is also key, again, with the left hand staying relatively simple. This is kind of the way I approach trying to learn some parts in drums as well, is where try to simplify things down, and you have the one hand just try to do something that you can kind of watch it, get it going, set it on autopilot, and try to kind of forget about it and have it just do its thing. And as long as you're not doing something completely conflicting timing-wise with the other hand, try to get something... Yeah, or brain-wise. Like just trying to get something going.
I'm either concentrating on the left side doing that, or I'm concentrating on the right side doing,
and that's why there's
doing.
That key is with the left hand there, just being in that position, and like you don't have to move anywhere with that left hand, right? Because you're just doing those 4 notes over and over.
Yeah,
so
if you get into the groove, eventually it becomes automatic. You go into cruise control. That's what I need to get my left hand to do more of, is get into cruise control and start to focus on my right hand, which has been neglected for 25 years. I've been bass-centric.
And all that stuff that you just did right there, these little grips and going back and forth, that's the kind of stuff to really focus on to get that moving. And even if for the left hand, rather than doing that little move, like if it does get too confusing or they're interfering with each other while you're doing that left pattern, just try to do 2 of those notes, like just do the root and the 5 and just hit them together, and you're doing a little power chord in the left hand, and that's holding down the chord for you, and then do some stuff in the right hand, and then maybe the next time do the 3 and the 5 or the 3 and the root. So you're kind of spelling out the chord different ways. So it doesn't always have to be a line like that. It can just be holding this or holding that, and that way it makes it easier so that you can bounce other stuff in the right hand more easily.
Yeah. Almost feeling it.
There you go.
I still can't. That little 3-note combination.
Yep. And that's also where it doesn't have to always be there. Like
I like it.
It's good. It's a good transition in the middle. But it's just like when people first learn pentatonic scales, sometimes they'll just start running them from the bottom to the top to the bottom to the top and just running the full scale back and forth, which is good for practice. But when you're actually trying to utilize it, usually just using pieces of it or going back and forth. Like remember when we were talking about the composition stuff, like surrounding a note, like if you're headed for the C, for example, as a resolution, going up to the D first and then back to the C, or the D to the B to the C, that kind of thing, where you're surrounding the note that you're headed for. Little things like that can add more interest to an otherwise straightforward line, so you can make stuff sound more complicated than it really is.
Yeah, and you get a different depending on which direction you're coming from. There's a difference between B to C versus D to C.
Yep, and a lot of it has to do with the voice leading, or whether you're doing contrary motion or parallel motion, all of those that we discussed a couple weeks ago as well, talking about the different ways the two voices can interact when, when looking at a melody and looking at harmony.
Yeah, I really did like that parallel motion video. That helped me a little with some of my melody on our Worms track.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I was trying to find a way to go this way on the bass and this way on the synth.
Yeah. And one of the ones that we watched, I think it was last week, where trying to get three voices then, and it was like, okay, well, what are the first two voices doing? And one of them's doing the root, the other one's doing the five. It's like, okay, my first thought, go to the three. One of them's doing the three, one of them's doing the five. Okay, I'll go to the root. Like there's always going to be, if you're looking at three voices, there's always one of those chord tones available, as far as if these are single note lines that everybody's doing,
and
like the horn lines.
That, if there's one thing in music theory that is worth learning about, it's the importance of the triad and the chord construction, 1, 3, 5. If you don't learn any other music theory, that alone helps you to understand a big part of where theory comes from.
Mm-hmm. And that's also one of the things with when people learn guitar, for example, you're looking at these big chords first,
chords.
like we're talking about all those big chords, but realize that you can strip any of those chords down to just those same three tones, because for the most part, the main chords we're looking at, like those main six string chords, you're using all 6 strings and it's a big bar chord. 3 of those notes are the root, so 3 of those are the same note. You've got a really low one, a middle one, and a high one, but they're all the same note. Like they're all G or they're all D or they're all B, whatever key you're in. But that's 3 of the same notes, so you don't need all 3 of them to represent. Like it makes it a full sound.
As a guitarist and a bassist, do you consciously think about the chords you're not fretting and what they are?
Yeah. Yep. The notes that I'm not fretting, and that's the thing, is when you start taking the instead of doing the big bar chords, when you start just taking the little triads or little pieces of the chords, you're able to get much more flexible with where you can go. You can see a piece of let's say you're playing a G chord. You can play a G chord down here on the neck in this shape, but you can also just use the 3 notes on the 3 skinniest strings, for example, and you can play it here, here, or here. There's like 3 little claws, just like we're talking the claws on the keyboard there. There's 3 little triad claws that you can hold up on the top there to get you all the way through the pattern, and then it repeats. So it's this one, this one, this one, and then you're back to the first one again. So once you get those in your head, where those 3 are, when you're in the key of this, it's always right here. And get those under your fingers, and you can use those as arpeggios. You can go back and forth on them, up and down those 3 notes, back and forth, to make it a broken chord. To make it sound like it's a solo line, or make it sound like it's more filling rather than just strumming that one chord and being done with it.
See,
so there's a lot of options there.
That's one of the differences, I think, being a keyboardist versus guitarist. No note gets played on a keyboard unless you hit it. Where, with guitars, it's almost like, you guys have magical extra notes in your chords just because of the instrument. Those notes aren't going to happen on my keyboard unless I hit those open notes.
Well, at the same time, the open strings, that's one thing. Like, you can use those to your advantage, but they are still always the same notes. But with the keyboard, for example, camera's on over here, right? Yeah, okay, we can see that. So, like, if I was doing, you won't hear it, but if I'm hitting, these 2 different chords, these are both C chords, right? So this is a C, an E, and a G, a C, an E, and a G, one for each hand. Now that's 2 different C's, 2 different E's, and 2 different G's.
Now I notice you've got 6 fingers hitting the key. You're thinking like a guitarist would, trying to put all the notes into your playing.
That's what I'm saying, is that you don't actually
come
have
from
to.
a
Like,
keyboard.
you can strip it down.
There's an advantage sometimes to have that dual songwriting approach. I wish I could write like a guitarist. It's been my biggest challenge with the keyboards, trying to simulate guitar.
Let's say, for example,
and understanding that those notes need to be part of the combination.
If we look at the big, that big 6-note bar chord, like I was talking about on a guitar, and let's say we were playing a G chord, that bottom note would be a G. The next one is going to be the 5th. So the next one is going to be a D. Then you're going up to another G. Then you're going up to a 3rd, which is that B. and then up to another D, and then up to another G.
Oh, okay. So
And that's the whole chord on the guitar. So
I see what you're saying.
So it's like you got 3 G's in there, so you don't need all 3 of those G's. You can have them, and you can roll the thing back and forth, and you get that nice full sound. But the idea is that by stretching out the notes like that, it sounds nice and full. And at the bottom, it's not too muddy because you have like the root, and instead of going root, third, fifth all together at the bottom, you're doing a root, and then you're jumping to a fifth, and then you're jumping to that next octave.
If I was bouncing between my hands.
Exactly.
I can't fail.
Yeah, exactly. Because the left hand is basically doing a power chord because that's the root, the fifth, and the octave, and then the other hand is giving you the third, so it's giving you that flavor of the major. But that is just an example of that big chord. But you don't have to play all the tones, but they're all there available to you. So that's where it's not that there's a lot more accessible on a guitar than with a piano. It's just different ways of looking at it. With the piano, the one thing I'd like is the fact that I can have one hand way down there hitting a bunch of notes that are all really low, and one hand way up here hitting notes that are very high. On the guitar, you can do something similar where you've got notes that are 2 octaves apart, that are the fat string to the skinniest string, are a good distance apart there sonically. But you can't have like something way, way low and something way, way high unless you start using, like you said, open strings. You can cheat on a couple different things. But
if I start sliding down on my left hand, I mean, this is a nice spread. That covers 3 octaves, 2 octaves.
A little more than 2, I think.
Yeah, you end up going 3 by the time you get to the pinky.
And that would be that big 6-note bar chord. If you were looking at the 5-note bar chord, like just leaving the fat string out and just starting a bar chord on the next one, you'd be doing root, 5, octave, third, and then the last one I think is another 5. Then another G. And then another, wait.
I was going to go 5 and then the third all the way at the top.
Yeah, I think it's root 5, octave, third, and then 5 again. I'm not looking at it right now. But it's the same thing, like rolling the chord kind of way out. You could also push that one up to the octave at the top. So then you are covering that full 2 octaves worth of notes with 3 different Gs.
Yeah. With my right hand, if I change the inversions between all possibilities. Yeah, just by changing the inversions on my right hand, it's a big stretch.
And you could see using them in different places as well when you're composing music. Like there are a number of songs that I've seen with the Grateful Dead, for example, with a guitar thing, but he's using, let's say the song goes from an F to a C to a G to an F. It doesn't necessarily go from, this shape, shape 1 to shape 2 to shape 3 back to shape 1. He goes to a different shaped F chord. So he'll use, this inversion for the first chord, and then he's working his way kind of down the neck or up the neck, whichever way he was going, and he would use a different inversion of the chord that's further along that way. So you get that same kind of voice leading that we were talking about the other day.
See, that's the most comfortable position between them.
Yeah. And it sounds great. And that's the thing with the repeated tones there.
Almost always.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I do chords on the bass, for the same idea, like leaving enough room in the bottom so you don't get a bunch of muddiness going on, I'll take that lowest note is the root, and then I'll actually skip to the next lowest note that I'm going to play is the third an octave higher. So I would skip from that, a G at the bottom, for example, to not that next B, but the B an octave above that. So that's like technically that's a 10th, and then
that's
so those would be the and then after that B after that you would go up to the
you guitarists with your 9ths and 10ths. I got stubby little fingers.
Well, that's the thing,
you
is
got
for
giant
me
hands.
I do, because if you see actually now that we have the camera over here, like here's an octave for me.
I can't believe how far your hand stretches.
I mean, that's the thumb to the pinky is C to C, right? But then C to C, D, C to E is an easy play, so that's a 10th for me. And then I can actually play to the C to the F. And I can, if I hold down the C and hold down the G, I can actually hold them both down from the distance, but I can't actually play those two.
Well, you don't actually have to bounce. Me, after I can do an octave.
Right.
An octave, my hands just fit into an octave.
Yeah, I can do an octave with any two fingers.
Trying to
basically.
do a second on that octave. Ugh, I can't actually play it without hitting some of the notes next to.
Right.
I would have to bounce.
Yep. Bounce or use the pedal. There's a couple different options there, yeah.
Or some fancy like programming.
But that's the other thing is by being able to stretch to that 10th over there, that means that I could actually do like just root, third, 5, octave, and third again. So like there's a 5-note chord in one hand. It's not comfortable to play like that necessarily, but like I can roll that.
No,
and have that
arthritis after years of playing that.
If I did that all the time, yeah, but that's not the kind of thing that I would necessarily do all the time. But it's something that not a lot of people can do. But it's a nice sound to be able to hit that nice spread out 10th, because for me again I could like move that around.
And again, you don't have that stretch challenge the same way when you're dealing with a stringed instrument with a fretboard.
It is a little different with that. If your hands are too small, you can always play a little closer to the body, because that way, or closer up the body.
Yeah, they start to get closer. I wish my keys started to get closer on.
Yeah,
it would be interesting to play a piano that actually adjusted the size across the lows and the highs.
We had the one guy we talked about in Pennsylvania who had the smaller key size for the people with smaller hands. I can only imagine what that would look like, how much further I could reach on those, because I think it's a full, it's either a ½ inch or an inch smaller on those keys, because instead of, if this is 8.5 from C to C, I think he was making them in 8 or 7.5, different sizes that are slightly smaller.
Now imagine if he had a sliding scale across 88 keys where the center was normal piano distance and the low end and the high end was more like, a traditional guitar distance. On the high end, for the soloing and this kind of jazz blues soloing with the high stuff, an adjusting keyboard length, I could see that being really popular with some players.
Thing is, though, it's kind of important to have consistent distances, especially when people are like pieces.
You got to reprogram your brain.
Where you're bouncing like octaves, for example. You're doing like a low octave and then coming up here, so you're hitting like the lowest 2 C's on the keyboard, and then you're hitting like the 3rd and 4th C on the keyboard. So you're bouncing between these and those, and you go boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And
if
that has
you
to be
are
the same
sliding
distance.
between octaves, your brain could get messed up at. You probably would mess up playing the keys closer and trying to do that kind of soloing unless you got really used to it.
Yeah, it happens. But yeah, that was
when you guys are playing on the guitar. I mean, how long did it take you when you first played the guitar or the bass to get used to that difference in distance on the higher end of the neck?
It was more of those one of those things where you're playing certain phrases or certain pieces. If you're trying to play it in a certain place, it might be more complicated. You're like, oh, this is really tricky, whatever. And then if you just go up an octave, you're moving over 2 frets and down 2 strings, and all of a sudden it's a little easier. You have to remember about that shift for the B string, so things are a little bit, you have to watch the tuning when things like that happen, but you follow your ear, and, it works out fine. But the idea is that you can play it in different places on the neck because of the way it's constructed. So you could play it all the way up in the body. Basically, if you take anything that you're playing on the fattest string and you have a certain run that you're doing or whatever, if you take that run and just go down 1 string and over 7 frets, now you're playing it an octave higher. So you can jump all the way up 7 frets and play the same thing just up there. You can also go just down 2 strings and up 2 frets, and that's also the same octave. So there's a number of places that you can move to do the same thing.
How do you program your brain on 7 frets? Is it 2 dots and
it depends, really. Like I'll usually do it. It's the same
or are
sound.
you just like distance programmed at this point?
It's kind of both, really. It is between looking at the dots on the neck in some way. Like I'm not actually counting like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's more like I just am noticing whether I'm on a dot or not. So I'm either on the odds or the evens, essentially, and then I'm thinking about.
That's how you guys think about it.
Partially, it's not always odds. It's not always odds and evens, but if
but that's got to be a lot easier. Um, with me, I'm always looking at the black white combination on my keys.
Mm-hmm. What we have is the 12 is the one that's the double dot, or the one that stands out kind of by itself. The starting from the bottom there, we have dots at 3, 5, 7, 9. So we're looking at the odds right there. So, and you can see
Now,
that they're much bigger.
Why is the first dot on the third?
Because basically this is just to keep your navigation, and the first two, like if you're playing in those first 2 frets, then your hand is basically covering the first 4 frets. You'd be doing 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and that's not hard to keep track of. So it's more landmarks essentially. But the main thing is that 3, 5, 7, 9, and then you got the 12, and then since you're an octave higher, it's 3, 5, 7, and 9 in the next octave, which is 15, 17, 19, and 21.
So for you guys, the dots really are, like you said, landmarks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whereas on a keyboard, like the black keys and the white keys, assuming you didn't transpose,
mm-hmm.
are what they are.
In the same way, it's following a pattern. So like when you start at that C, when you get when the pattern comes back to the point where it's the B followed by the C, those 2 white notes right next to each other, that only happens twice in each octave, right? Between the B and the C, and between the E and the F. So in the same way, you've got that little landmark system going on. So you can see that, that it repeats every so often. So that's the other thing, is that it looks like such a complicated thing because there's 88 things to hit on a keyboard, but there's only 12 different things.
There's actually only 12.
And multiple copies of them. It's just some of them sound lower and some of them sound higher. So it's just, a question of what tone they're making. But when it comes to what I was saying about the frets here, like when you're going, if I was playing an A at the 5th fret, on the fattest string, and I wanted to get up to another A, I can just go up 7 from the 5th fret, which is up to 12, which is the octave. So, and certain spots on the neck just stand out to you, like the 5, the 7, and the 12 are places that stand out because of the fact that that's, it's a little complicated, but the 5th fret is the 4. Like if you're playing in the key of E, and that's an open string, then this one is the 4, that's the 5th fret, and then the 5 is at the 7th fret, and the octave is at the 12th fret. So open 5, 7 octave is going root 4, 5 root.
So your visual indicators really help you to know where you are on the neck. But
mm-hmm.
you guys do actually have to if you're down tuning, or what a lot of guitars are doing these days, mm-hmm. shifting things. The visual indicators are more about pattern than they are.
Yeah.
Like
for me, it's all about recognition. Pattern. Yeah, for me, it was all about pattern. That's actually one of those differences, though, that we talked about with my cousin Jeff. When he doesn't like about the 5-string is that when he sees the fattest string and he plays it on the 3rd fret, he's expecting to hear a G, because that's what you get out of a.
And if Jeff don't like it, it's not musical.
Yep. And that's with my 5-string bass. He plays, if he's just running around or whatever, and he plays the 3rd fret on the fattest string, he's actually getting a D, because that's the low B string, so it's a different sound, and that might mess him up. So all he wants to do is, he always jokes about just getting the wire cutters and just cutting that low B string off of there, and then it's a perfectly good bass, because then it's a 4-string bass like every other. But when it comes to down tuning, though, like no matter, like if somebody's doing drop tuning, that's one thing. If somebody's just down tuning everything, like if you're staying in standard tuning but going down, where instead of this being the lowest note being an E, all of a sudden it's an E flat or it's a D.
And there is a difference. Like there's a difference between tuning to like 432 versus mm-hmm. drop B.
Sure.
They're not the same thing. And people don't do them for the same reasons.
Yep. And actually, I'm going to change the order of one of the videos here, because
do you have one on 432?
I have one actually on open D tuning. So it's about just happens to be about one of the tunings that since we're talking about different tunings. This one's like 8.5 minutes ago, but this is Paul David's guitar. We've talked to him, or we've had him on here several times here as well. You'll recognize him. One of the ones I loved from him was a little funk lesson that we did. Yeah, exactly.
At this point, my YouTube is your YouTube.
And there's some good stuff on my YouTube, right?
Oh yeah, I love your YouTube.
Yep. Definitely find some good things there. Let me get this shared over here. But this is again open D tuning, and this will give you an idea, like you're saying, when it comes to why you would detune, why you would use an open tuning like this. Normally, if you were just to strum all the strings on a guitar without holding anything on a fret, then you would get kind of a messy sound because it's not all in the same, it's not one chord. When you do an open D tuning, though, every single note that you're hitting is one of those chord tones of D. And that's
is
where...
Is this the DAGAD tuning? D-A-G-A-D?
It's one of them. This was actually, I want to say...
It's a very popular...
That is a sort of a version of it. This is actually, I want to say D-A-D. There's an F sharp instead of a G in there. So he actually mentions it in the first, in the opening minute or so, what the tuning is. But it's just when you strum all the strings, it is giving you an open D chord. Is the difference between what you would normally have on a guitar, where if you strum all the strings, it's not a good sounding chord necessarily. There's notes in there that don't necessarily match.
But when you hold the right chord, you get a harmonious sound, that notes that cannot fail.
Once you're in that open D tuning, like you could sit there and if you just strummed all the strings open, you would have a D chord. And then that way, if you were to just hold everything at the 5th fret, instead of it being an open D chord, then all of a sudden it would be a G. So it's like it just changes what key it is, but you're able to just play a chord in any key by literally barring across all the strings. And that way you could also just pluck any of those strings individually as well. So you could just bar across the whole thing, and just using your other hand for finger picking, you could just pick whatever string you want, and it's always going to be a good note because of the way it's tuned. So that's one of the kind of things that he's going to probably get into with this. But this is one of those that's...
Finger capo?
It's kind of like,
it's like the whole neck.
Finger capo the whole neck. It's basically one of those... some would call it cheating, but it's just another one of those ways that you can make life easy for somebody who's either a beginner, or if you just wanted to focus more on, making the music than you are on getting your fingers to cooperate to make these chords that you never quite learned or what have you. This is one of those ways that you can kind of get around that using an open tuning like this. If you're just more interested in songwriting, and then you can just literally just bar this, bar that, and move along.
Yeah, and for those who call things cheating in music, the goal is to make a sound. Judging people on how they make a sound, if they made a cool sound, or they had a vision to their sound, there's no cheating in music. I mean, people who cheat in music steal other people's music. Those are cheaters.
Yep. To me, when I talk about it like that, I'm talking about it a little bit, a little teasing, a little.
Well,
little
I know
jokingly.
You guitarists are especially finicky.
Well, we talk about cheating when it comes to just things like pentatonic scales, or the fact that, for us, if we wanted to change from one key to another, all we have to do is just slide up a fret or slide down 3 frets.
Yeah,
or,
and see,
slide
that feels like
it's the
cheating.
same pattern.
As a keyboardist, it feels like you guys are cheating. But ironically, as a keyboardist, and I try to play guitar, guitarists look at me like I'm cheating. It's a vicious cycle.
And at the same time, either one of you, like the guitar player, could sit there and put a capo on, and someone could say, "Hey, that's cheating," because now you're making it easy for yourself to play in a different key, and you can use a transpose button. And you could use a transpose button on your keyboard. So if you're instead of playing in G flat,
has been around from the moment they started defining music. Transposing was an important part of defining music.
Absolutely.
You want to hear what a melody or a chord progression sounds like in every key. If you didn't have a way to transpose, then you have to learn every one of those keys and listen.
Exactly. Okay, so open D tuning, the most beautiful tuning for guitar, according to Paul Davids. Let's see what he's got here.
Oh, he comes in with a beautiful intro.
Open D tuning. Is there a tuning more beautiful than this one? I don't think so. D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. It sounds really good. We're going to start out with the thumb, playing the 6th and the 4th string. Just alternating bass pattern like this. And then in between of those thumbs, we're playing the 1st and the 2nd string. Like this, with the middle and index finger. And if this scares you, no need to worry, because later in this video, we will be using a pick. It sounds really good too, and it's maybe even easier, so make sure to stick around for that. But so far we're just playing a D power chord, and it's fun, but it's not all that great to be honest. So in the bass, we're gonna play a B note. And then to G. And then back to D. And then briefly, let's play an A note. spice this up a little bit. Let's add a transition bass note every fourth beat. And let's end with a bulking bass, like this. And let's add one more transition bass note on the third beat. There we are. So far we're just playing a few chords. And just chords doesn't make a song, right? So let's try if we can play a melody under the same as chords, but now a little bit higher. Let's see if we can do that. Play a melody nice. It sounds really good, but it feels a bit weird without that picking pattern, right? A bit empty. So what if we could play the 2 and 2 together? The picking pattern and the melody. Let's see if we can try. Surprisingly well, right? One more time. Sounds so good. I love this. So remember, I talked about using the pick, right? I think it's time to grab it. We're gonna play exactly the same thing.
After saving with customized car insurance from Liberty Mutual, I customize everything. Like Marco's backpack.
What are the main differences between an average guitarist and a fingerstyle guitarist? If you give me 45 seconds, I'll explain them. Let's go.
Now just with the pick and maybe a little bit more heavy-handed. Just we need some volume.
Glenn, do you have something on your keyboard?
It sounds cool.
You have a stuck note. It's like a pad. I can hear the piano, but there's still a stuck note. It's like a long, ethereal. Yeah, it's still going. You're gonna want to kill your MIDI. Hit the MIDI kill.
See, I mean, I'm muted that whole time. It's something that is a tab right there. Not a YouTube tab, but something within OBS. Let me just stop my...
Yeah, something is stuck.
You're still hearing it after I stop that, right?
I'm still hearing it now.
Okay. Let me just do this with OBS.
I mean, fortunately, it's a very ambient pad, so like, I feel like I'm floating. I'm
Originally,
flying.
One of these videos that was in here, one of the art videos that I had going on in the background. Hang on, let me just go ahead and kill out of OBS and do it that way.
Stop the share. Reset the share. Oh, there we go. That was a very floaty sound.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, do you hear it now if I'm unmuted? Do you still hear the sound? Or
Nope, no, it's gone. It's gone.
Okay.
Whatever it was.
Because you don't hear it,
probably
but
stuck.
I still do. So that's the thing is, I still hear it on my end. So
Oh, man.
It's going to still keep going. The way I fixed it last time was actually just to bring up the ear trumpet and try to get rid of it from there.
It felt like a stuck MIDI note. You know,
No, I know.
MIDI
That's exactly what it
kill
sounds
switches have been there since the 80s for that reason, because MIDI gets
But you can also
stuck.
hear how it's not exactly one note. It's like a song almost. It's like you said, it's an ambient background. So it's basically there's a, yeah, like I said, not important, but there's a video somewhere running in the background.
I thought you put your trackball on the keyboard.
No, I hear you. Because that would, but even then, like at that time, when I'm not sharing, like you can see when I hit my keys, you won't actually hear it at all. Like here's me.
That's what puzzled me. I was like, he wasn't routing his keyboards.
Yep. And actually, I stopped the virtual cam so you wouldn't see it there anyway. But let's see if I do that and then start that. Now there's
it's gone now.
You don't hear it, right? But if I do that, you don't hear that either, right?
Nope.
So you don't hear the keys, even if even if I'm doing this, like you don't hear the keys. So even if I sat something down and had it down there, it would be holding the whole thing down, but it wouldn't be there.
Hey,
What's up,
Soul?
Jumping on through. How you doing, man?
He looked grumpy for a minute. Am I on? Your mustache was speaking.
We jumped right in the middle. It's all right, man. We were getting ready to wrap up in a minute here and start the Soul Make show. You know,
well,
not too long.
Soul heard the keyboard and he said, "Electronic music. This is my domain."
Indeed. Yes, that's still going on in the background.
You're gonna have to change your name to Soul Mask with that. You know that, right?
This is true. He will have to do that. Now I'm just going to look through my tabs real quick here just to see. Because, again, I didn't have any tabs running, but it was still coming from somewhere. That much I know for sure. Because it is still coming from somewhere.
Oh, you're still hearing it, huh?
Oh, yeah. That's what I was saying.
Oh, my God. It's like that itch you can't scratch.
on your end, I'm pretty sure it's a lot louder than it was on my end. So on my
I don't
end,
hear it anymore.
Yeah, I know. But even when it was playing, like it was probably louder for you than it is on my end. For me, it's just kind of background. Like I said, I can still hear you talking. We can still have a conversation over it. It's just funny that it's a ghost in the machine. I will find it. I will track it down.
I will scratch that itch.
Exactly. In the meantime, we're going to probably go ahead and cut the stream here in a moment, and that way we'll be all ready for getting Mr. Soulmake started on his show. Don't want to be up too late. Got to get that started for him. So, what do you got on your keyboard over there for some outro for us there, Tone? What'd you pick up from any of those videos that would be appropriate for that?
Actually, hold on. I'm going to switch.
You switch that over there while I'm working on the sounds over on this side. Always got to be something happening over here. I am digging the meticulous and the way I can actually see the notes is definitely nice. And when I share, we can get it where we can see it a little bit better. We'll get the cameras up a little better for the hand view also, whether it's for the bass or the guitar, all that stuff. How you doing on that end there?
I can't get this out of my head. It's been my riff this week.
Very cool.
Little preview. And to hear the rest, you will have to tune in next week as we worm it out.
That's right. And it was the OBS, by the way, just killing out of OBS, bringing it back up. Everything's fine.
That makes total sense.
It was a relief to
I
hear
had
it.
the same problem.
Stop.
Yeah, OBS with Meticulous and C Music run into a few anomalies with that.
They're trying to do their thing, and sometimes they try to do it a little too well.
Well, OBS does have some MIDI support, so it's possible that like it might gum up some MIDI and send a note when you didn't mean to.
Exactly. Now, not sure exactly what time they want to cut, but now that I did fix that little sound issue, we can go ahead with another video if we want to. So why don't we go ahead and cut into... Let's see, we were in the middle of which one? We were in Paul David's, right? Doing the open D tuning. So let me just back that up just a little bit. This one was about another 5 minutes, so let's just finish that one out for it. So don't want to cut him off in the middle with that whatever I had going on over the top of that. Sorry, guys.
Oh, and that tuning really does sound nice, and it does make it look much easier.
Exactly. It is very smooth that way. All right, cool. So let's do it this way then. We're going to go ahead and do this one, and then we have a couple more after that even. So for now, let's get this one sharing, and then we'll jump in and catch up with him when we had open D tuning on an acoustic guitar, which, as we said, it does in fact.
Open Sesame Street.
Open Sesame. All right, we'll give him.
I love this. So remember, I talked about using the pick, right? I think it's time to grab it. We're gonna play exactly the same thing, now just with the pick, and maybe a little bit more heavy-handed. Just breathe some volume. Sounds gorgeous. I can listen to that for ages. But I do think we can make more out of this. Remember those bass notes we talked about? Before we go there, I quickly wanted to tell you something. So as you see, I love the acoustic guitar. Nothing beats it. The simplicity, the direct connection you've got with it. And that is exactly the reason why I made a guitar course just for the acoustic guitar. It's called Acoustic Adventure. The starting point is a nice interactive map where we can visit places like the Fingerpicking Lounge and the Flatpickers Saloon and pick your favorite lessons from there. We cover styles from swampy fingerstyle blues to awesome modern playing techniques and anything in between, really. So please check it out at acousticadventure.com. Thank you so much. So, back at it. I talked about those bass notes. So remember we played these at the 4th beat. So what if we played the chords, the melody, and the bass notes all on one guitar? The holy trinity of music, the bass, the melody, and the chords. Let's see if it's possible. Sounds really great. I think we can play this with a pick as well. Let's get back to that gentle picking pattern. Maybe just as gentle as you're about to hit that like button, if you enjoyed this video, of course. Anyway, all the tabs for what I was playing are available at my Patreon page, so if you want to check it out, you can hop on over there. And I just want to thank you so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed playing in open D tuning, so make sure to check it out as well. Learn it. Goodbye.
Now he was picking there, but I would imagine that really lends itself to finger picking just as nicely.
Yeah, either can be achieved, and that's the thing is like he was mentioning with the volume, you can get actually a little bit louder if you use the pick, but there are certain things that are easier to do with finger picking versus with a pick, and a lot of it comes down to
more chord play.
Well, either that or even just muting, being able to mute the strings. Like for me, when I do bass stuff, one of the reasons I really like the 5-string bass, I have 5 fingers and I have 5 strings, so I just keep like one finger on each string, can keep me just perfectly under control and everything muted. Although you can't play fast that way, so you can't sit there and use your pinky to play a fast line on that string, for example. So you don't stay in that position, but for the most part you can keep the strings under control that way, and then when you move, you can just there are techniques to mute the highest string or the lowest string with whichever hand is crossing over it, to make sure it's not ringing out and all of that sort of thing.
So sometimes if you're deciding whether to finger pick or use a pick, speed helps
can be a
factor in.
It can, but it's not that one is necessarily better than the other for speed. It's more what kind of a line it is. There's actually a couple songs I do out in Pennsylvania with those guys that it's a finger style thing that I would not be able to play with a pick. I would not be able to pick fast enough to catch up with the line, basically giving like a just a very fast back and forth with these 2 fingers. And if I'm trying to do that with a pick,
because I was just thinking
I should
like
be able to, but
finger picking on a bass, with the like double finger approach, that's like some Iron Maiden like bass picking.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. It all depends on what you're going for. And there are, it sounds kind of silly that I can, finger pick faster than I can pick with a pick. But for me, it's just that I have far more experience finger picking than using a pick. But I am getting a lot faster, actually, with some of those exercises from Tomo Fujita we've talked about for some of his guitar stuff. He had this one exercise that's just a small chromatic exercise that you can do in 5 minutes. But it's something that's just, it gets your fingers limbered up, gets them warmed up, gets you ready to go. And it's really made a difference.
That's the real key. Like the looseness, me trying to play fast, especially like a guitarist with my keyboard, getting my fingers relaxed so that they just move.
Exactly. Now, one of the ones we had here also was from about mixing. Can you mix metal on headphones? So, valid question. And this is from...
I watch Jason do it every night.
Exactly. Spectre Sound Studios. So this is one where he was talking about some specific headphones here. So let's see what we have there. We'll share that up once again. I am glad we don't have the interference from that video that I had playing before. Sorry about that again for having that.
Well, at least it was a nice ambient sound. It would have been a lot worse if it was like a stuck power cord.
Yeah, and I remember it happening once before. So as soon as I heard it, I'm like, I was like, this definitely doesn't sound like it's part of the song. But the last time it happened, it was like 3 minutes later or whatever before I even noticed it was happening. This time I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this trick before. All right, so let's try.
I love this
Glenn
guy.
Fricker, absolutely.
He's the Sam Kinison. He's the Sam Kinison of metal mixers, or just sound engineers in general.
He definitely has some interesting stuff to say, though. So in this case, can you mix metal on headphones? Let's find out.
Hey, how's it going? So, you guys have heard me say over and over and over again, don't mix on headphones, mix on monitors, because you're going to get better results. Well, Sennheiser reached out to me and said, well, hey, we've got a new set of headphones called the HD400 Pros, and we think they're a pretty cool way to mix on. Would you be interested in checking them out? And I'm like, hell yeah, send me a set. So they sent me a set of these, and these are an open back design, meaning you're not going to get the bass frequency build up like you would with a normal set of headphones. They also said that I should try these out with their virtual reality room simulator, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like that might be interesting. Let's try out a mix with these things and see if you can indeed mix with headphones. All right, so I'm over here at the desktop, got the HD400s, and yeah, they're an open back design, so they're meant for mixing on. And that's the thing. I just did that video last week. You know, don't mix on headphones, get these Calis because they're awesome. And they are awesome. But Sennheiser's like, hey, check these out. And most importantly, check this out as well. This is the Deer VR Mix. It's a virtual reality room simulator to work on your headphones. I'm going to get into that in a second, but I was just going to say, headphones are really cool. You know, they're super comfortable. They've got these felt ear cups and headband, and they just go on no problem. And if you're sitting here for any amount of time, you're going to forget that you're wearing them, which is really cool. Now, of course, if you're working with an open back design, I mean, like if you're going to be, you know, trying to mix a song on an airplane, you might not have the best of luck because you're going to get a lot of bleed, and you might annoy the guy sitting next to you on your flight. So that might be a thing. But if you're at home, if you're at an apartment, or you're sharing a spot with a bunch of roommates and you don't want to disturb everybody, or you don't want to disturb your neighbors, especially if you're in an apartment and you're playing back the song over and over and over again endlessly, yeah, you know what? These might be a viable alternative. And when you couple them with the Deer VR system, this is where it gets really interesting. Now, I've got this set up here on Reaper on the monitor effects window right here, and that's going straight to my headphones, but you guys won't be hearing what this is doing because this is set up for the headphones. You guys are going to be hearing the end result of the mix like anybody else would in the real world. What's going on here with the headphones is basically you set up the headphone compensation here. There's all kinds of little bit of adjustments you can make, and they recommend for mixing on headphones that you set up the focus to localized, and I've got the experience cranked up here a little bit. You can go neutral. You can crank it up a little bit, kind of play around with it to your taste. Now, one thing I'm noticing with this, it's almost the same as, say, taking a direct output of a guitar amp with a lot of distortion on it and putting an impulse response on it. You kick this on, it just immediately smooths the mix out, and it feels much more like you're sitting in a space because your sources aren't localized to just one ear. That's the big fatal flaw with headphones is if you're panning, you know, you pan something over far left or far right, you're not going to get it in both ears like you would with a set of studio monitors. When you're working with a set of studio monitors, say you've got something panned over to your far left speaker, you're not just going to hear it in your left ear, you're also going to hear it in your right ear, not only coming from the speaker, but you're also going to hear it off the room reflections as well. And that gives us our 3D space, and that's how we localize a sound source. This software allows us to do exactly that same kind of thing and give us a very nice and flat frequency response so we can really hear just what the hell is going on. Once again, I don't have this applied to the mix you're hearing. You're hearing the final result, which is what you would want in the real world anyway. So I'm just going to set this up. I'm going to go for a mix here. We've got this set for mix room B. I kind of like that, but we've got a couple of different mix rooms to work with. Plus, we've got to check. We can check in the car, club, home theater. theater at the kitchen, that sort of thing. So that's pretty cool, but I kind of like room B for this, and I'm not sure exactly what room they sampled to get this, but it seems to be doing the trick. Let's check this mix out. This is what I'm working on right now, and this has been dialed in just using the HD400 headphones. Interestingly enough, I'm not having a hard time hearing the bottom end with these, which is fantastic. That's where you're going to find headphones have really got the hardest time hearing what's going on is in the bottom end and the extreme bottom end, because a lot of times you're just kind of guessing. Once again, with the room simulator, with the ambience, it's sounding much more like a mix environment. Once I turn that off, I turn the monitor effects off, I hear a massive shift. Everything gets a little bit more brittle sounding. Everything gets a little bit more upfront and in your face. It's a little bit nastier, and I'd find I'd probably be EQing things a lot more severely in the top end, especially on the guitar frequencies. With the VR on, it's smooth. It sounds like I'm sitting in a control room. Kind of forget I'm just listening on headphones, which is great. And if you want to do that, head rotation, you can. And it'll pan so you can move your head in a horizontal plane to get a better feel of your virtual setup. That's great. And that really does the trick. Now, for your guitar players out there, you guys are getting heavy tones and whatnot, this is actually a combination of 3 different amp sims all at the same time. So on the Guitar Bus 1, we have the SCL Tonality Lossa Lambert, with looks like a couple of greenback speakers. And then we're filling it in with the Grindstein from Audiority, which I reviewed a little while back. And for the speakers, I've got the Get Good cabs on there. With, I think, with one of Nolly's presets, and I just kind of tweaked it up a little bit there. But you combine the two, and it's like, damn! I really wanted to get away from the standard vintage 30 kind of guitar tone for this, and I think it works really well, especially when you get to those jackhammer rhythms right here. One of my favorite guitar tones of all time was Machine Head's Burn My Eyes, and that was a 5150 into a greenback cab. So you can definitely get some cool freaking sounds with that. And for the lead tone, we're using the Aurora Audio Rhino, which I demoed a while back as well, which is like only $50 and an absolutely killer program as well. But the fact is, I'm putting this mix together with bass, with everything. Just on headphones, that's absolutely killer. This is the thing I promised there a couple of years ago. I was going to try and do a video or two if I find some viable headphone systems. Now, I've done a couple of headphone reviews in the past, and it's always been just them on their own, but I think this is a real winner with the Deer VR mix. I mean, it just kind of adds exactly what headphones have been lacking for the longest time. And the fact that it's designed to work with these headphones specifically is absolutely fantastic. I think Sennheiser's got a real winner on here. But you guys tell me, what do you think of the mix? Do you like how this turned out? Are you struggling to hear anything? Is anything overbearing in what you're listening to? Because I'm pretty happy with the results I've gotten so far. I said, I think this might be an actual viable alternative to monitors. I think Sennheiser's really onto something, especially with the VR rooms. That really just kind of pushes things just to the next level, and I think that's absolutely tremendous. So if the HD400 Pros seem like the kind of solution that you're looking for, I'll have some links in the description below. Of course, you can find more information over on the Sennheiser website. I have some links to that as well. And if you want to check out the Deer VR mix software, it'll be in the description below as well. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.
That DRVR software sounds pretty cool.
He's great.
Yeah, very much so. Very cool. I'm a big fan of the options there, and being able to mix in headphones. I mean, I mix in headphones already, and for me, it's like you said, mileage may vary, and that's one of those things where it's important to test your mixes in different environments. So whether it's in a car, whether it's through this stereo or that stereo, or a powerful system or a tiny system, it's good to hear your mix in many different ways.
Yeah.
To quality check, make sure everything's making sense.
I do mix and master with headphones, and then I gauge it against speakers afterwards. Yeah, there's a truth to, if you're mixing with those speakers, you get real room separation. That things like hard panning, one of the things he mentioned there. The reason why I don't tend to hard pan with my headphones is because I'm trying to compensate for what I know the speakers will do there.
Indeed.
But I think more engineers these days are kind of most people are listening on headphones, with their mobile devices and things. So I think these days it is a better strategy to focus on the headphone sound first and go for the speaker sound when you're going to have an audience listening that way.
One big question is about earbuds. Because I use fully over-the-ear headphones that have good bass response and all, but I can only imagine that there's a much different bass response on earbuds, and I don't really test that way. So that's the question: is how much of the song actually does come across in that way?
Yeah, I've never gotten earbuds that didn't feel like the sound was tiny, and I need my headphones to hug my ears and the sound to go through them. Yep. I'm even thinking of closed and complete isolation headphones, just to really get submersed into it.
Yeah, that's what I usually go with, actually, because open back headphones have their purposes, but I actually like having a closed back also, partially as defense, even sometimes when we're at a gig, if it is getting loud, if it's a small room.
And that's where they are very useful. If I was doing performance mixing and things like that, I would have some good close back.
Yep, they're good to have with me. And actually, as a second layer or another method is, I was telling you about the ones that I have as a wireless Bluetooth for the phone. It has the collar, around the collar there, and then the earbuds go in from there. And I can actually have those on under these, so I can actually have those kind of protecting like earbuds just in there, and then have these over top, and I could be listening to either or both at the same time while doing that. So
yeah, for these kind of monitoring situations we run into, especially doing all this stuff, being able to have some earbuds under a good set of headphones really comes in handy sometimes.
Yep. It most certainly does.
It can get confusing, but as long as you don't have any stock notes or...
as long as you can identify where things are from. Yeah, exactly. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. Now, I do have one more video I was going to play for us today. It's about 8.5 minutes long. I think that's about right for how much time we had left here. And this one is about 5 EQ frequencies that are destroying your mix. I figured we'd go with one on mix stuff.
Yeah, I've been running. I had several EQ challenges this week with the things I'm working on. So cool.
Yep, good timing, right?
Well, EQ is my weak spot. Never got my ears completely adjusted to good EQing.
Let's see here. This is Joey Sturgis Tones. That's the page there.
Oh, you got a new one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think we've watched his before, at least not on the show. But I have checked out a couple of his videos before, and that's why it was coming up in my feed. And this is one that is it's a good topic, so I figured we'd jump into that real quick.
I'm gonna go search for him while we watch.
Yep, and here we go.
many elements to making the perfect mix, but without question, the most important element to have under your belt is EQ. In the tracking stage, it's getting the right source material, which is also EQ. But what if there were certain frequencies to watch out for every time you opened a session? Of course, every song is different, but wouldn't it make your life a little easier if you already knew what to look for, and probably a better mixer because you'd get more familiar with these frequencies over time? By the end of this video, you will not only know which frequencies are most likely ruining your mixes, but you'll know why. So what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST, and sometimes I go back to my old mixes and realize how very simple EQ moves would have improved the entire balance. But it's just something that I learned over time. And I would sometimes ask people for crits, but them telling me what the problem was versus being able to show me didn't really give me the results I want. I was lost, not making progress, and had to start going by trial and error. I'm gonna try and prevent you guys from having to go through the same trouble, at least a little bit. I'm sure most of us here are recording in 44,000 kilohertz, so which frequencies are causing our issues out of the 44,000? Speaking of 44,000, I'd love to hit that number by the end of this month, so please make sure to hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, and leave a like on the video if that transition caught you off guard. I thought it was pretty crazy. Frequency number 1. 700 hertz. This is possibly one of the most annoying frequencies that I deal with. If I were going to describe it, it's very reminiscent of that sonar blip you would hear on a submarine. One of the most annoying places you'll hear this is in a snare drum. I've heard many a drum mix ruined by this. Check it out. Now, does that or does that not remind you of that sonar sound from a sub? Subscribe by hitting that red button, transition game level up. I don't know what it is, but I really notice this frequency the most when I'm dealing with condenser mics. Whenever I'm using a condenser on snare or especially vocals. On vocals, this frequency can become really cloudy, especially on my voice, and I'm gonna show you guys that right now.
I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream. Me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew.
See how much clearer that got after removing 700 hertz? And depending on what the source material is, this sound can happen anywhere from 500 to 700 hertz. It's annoying and you can't unhear it. So if you like boosting 700 for some ring, just make sure that your sonar works. Get the reference? I'm on fire today. Frequency number 2. You guys should know that I have to bring this one up. 4K. Joey popularized the realization that this was a problem frequency because it was extremely ear fatiguing. But remember how I said I wouldn't just be telling you which frequencies? I'll tell you why it bothers us. Our ear canals are specifically designed to be sensitive to 2,000 to 4,000 kilohertz because it's a prominent area for speech and vocal intelligibility. But it can also cause us to be extremely sensitive to sounds. Think of the most annoying sound in the world. Here's one. Nails on a chalkboard. I'm sorry, but you have to listen to this. Notice how that hovers right around 4,000 kilohertz. Now let's listen to 4K on guitars, which is what Joey had originally made famous. Even though the example stopped, can't you still hear it? Do you see how much smoother that sounded with a simple change? Now remember that vocal that had a problem with 700 hertz? There was also something going on in the 4K area. These frequencies can pop up in different sources all over the song and they start stacking and becoming fatiguing. Listen to this.
I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew.
You see what I mean? The vocal got a lot smoother and less shrill, which is important when you're dealing with high-pitched vocals like I was doing in that song. Most of the time, we hate 4K, unless it's in the snare in one of the best breakdowns of the year. Number 3, and this can be the most dangerous one, ghost frequencies. There are certain sub-frequencies that you can feel, but you don't hear. The human ear doesn't even have the capability to hear these frequencies. That probably has something to do with the fact that our eyeballs vibrate at the frequency, so we have an internal crossover. But hold on, if you can't hear something, how can you fix it? Well, there are a couple options. You can roll off everything under 20 hertz and just hope that things are okay, which surprisingly a lot of people do and get away with. Or you can get a sub pack so you can feel those frequencies and tighten up your low end. It's kind of impossible to show you an example of this because you wouldn't hear it. But you know which frequency you can hear? Number 4, 300 to 400 hertz. This frequency is pure mud. It's terrible. It sounds like your source was recorded in a cardboard box. The first place I go to cut this frequency is toms, kicks, drums in general, but especially bass. If you split your bass, make sure your cutoffs get rid of 300 hertz. Listen closely. Do you see how nasty that was? It ruined all the clarity of the low end coming out of the guitar. But let's listen to some palm mutes of the guitar from a different section with Toneforge Jeff Loomis. Pay attention to the area with the bloom coming from the dynamic compressor. You feel me? Not paying attention to this area can ruin a mix in an instant. Number 5. This one is particularly important to heavy music, the 10K roll-off on rhythm guitars. And I know this is pretty elementary, but what people don't mention is how much clearer your leads sound when you leave this area open. It adds so much more bite and removes that fizz on the top. Take a listen. All of these EQ moves can be detrimental to your growth as a mixer in the songs that you're mixing. Now your clients will love you and your ears will thank you. Let's go over this one more time. 700 hertz, 4K, ghost frequencies, 300 hertz, and the 10K roll-off. By having these moves under your belt, you can make quicker and smarter EQ decisions when mixing. And remember, these numbers are not exact. It can be 100 hertz above or below, but you have the general idea now at the very least. If you're an engineer on the come up, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. You only have to do it one time. And tap that bell for notifications so when a video drops, you know the location. Until next time, I am out of here. Mic drop.
Was it Jordy Sturgis?
It was Joey Sturgis. Let me get back over here. Joey Sturgis Tones.
Joey Sturgis Tones. Want to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
I subscribe.
You and me.
Great tips. Those were great tips on certain frequencies in EQ to pay attention to. They are the muddy they're the frequencies that make the mud.
Mm-hmm. And that was the key, is understanding why that it's easy to tell somebody, oh yeah, do this, do this, do this, and do this, but understanding why they cause the problems is important as well, and that's where it makes a lot of sense, and it's good to have the information.
Well, and there's kind of two reasons why. Part of it is how we hear, and the other part of it is how sound gets to our ears. The EQ challenge there is half the listener and half the speakers.
Exactly. And I think at this point we're going to hand off to Mr. Soul Make.
I'm gonna hand it to the mustache.
Music. We'll see if the mustache brought Soul along with it today.
Oh, that mustache doesn't go anywheres without him.
Permanently attached, I do believe. It happens. That was definitely a key tips right there. Something we definitely need to look more at. Oh, he's got the mask. Look out.
Yeah, he's ready to take over.
Ready to take over. Still muted, but that's okay. He'll fix that momentarily.
How's it going?
Not bad, man. How you doing?
Nice and
another happy, Thursday night for us, but Friday afternoon for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's Good Friday.
Nice. It should be a good Friday. It should be an excellent Friday. How about that?
Yeah.
All Fridays are good to me.
Yeah.
Although Mondays are my new Fridays. Not gonna lie. Jason flipped the week around for me.
Indeed he did.
So yeah, does my mic sound all good? Like.
Yeah, sounds great, man.
That's it.
Able to hear you clearly even through the mask.
Are we gonna bounce the stream or?
I think actually he bounced it before this one, so I think he's just going to continue right from here.
Yeah, then he should be good.
Yep.
Guys are good to go. We're ready. T-minus 3 seconds for Electronic Thursday. Friday. Every night. What the hell? Welcome, my friend.
Enjoy. Have a great one, man.
Hey.